What's up? Welcome back to Mind Your Hormones. I cannot wait to have this conversation with you because this is something that I am going through in real time. So I love talking about that kind of stuff. And I'm just so passionate about breastfeeding and irregular cycles in general because if you know my history, you know that I had an irregular period for literally the majority of my life. Since the second I got my period when I was like 15 and a half until I was 28 when I regulated it out. So like it was irregular for over a decade, like literally would come maybe 3 times a year. And then PS, my gynecologist told me all I needed was 3 to 4 periods a year. LOL. And then it completely disappeared for a full 2 years. And then I, obviously like created my method, regulated it out, blah, 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 blah. Even though I have PCOS, and I got it back after 2 years of it being gone. So I was about 28 when I got it back. Maybe I was turning 28, whatever. It doesn't matter. And then it was regular for 4.5 years. Then I got pregnant on the first try. So, and currently, right now, I have my period back. I got my period back. My daughter is like 21 months, 20 months. And so I'm still breastfeeding her. I obviously been breastfeeding since the second she was born. And I didn't get my period back until I think it was either the month like when she was a year, like it was like June, like it was like when she was a year, or was that month right before. So it was around when she was a year old when I actually got my period back for the first time. And to be honest, and I did a whole podcast episode on that too, so I'll put that in the show notes. But also, PS, I'm on my walking pad right now. So if you hear that, that's what that is. But I'm recording a bunch of podcast episodes today because I'm going away for a little bit. And I'm not missing an episode. And I'm like, I just want to be sitting at my desk all day. And it's not that nice out. So I won't be able to go for a walk later. So anyway, if you hear the walking pad, that's what's happening. Um, so anyway, now I lost my train of thought. What a shock. What was I talking about? Oh, so nope, got my period back. Oh yeah. So I honestly didn't think that I was gonna get my period back until I stopped breastfeeding. Especially because like I had to work so hard and be so consistent with everything for it to stay regulated because I have PCOS. I was like, I don't think I'm getting my period back till I'm done breastfeeding. But I have had it back since, like I said, she was around a year old, so almost a year now that I've had it back postpartum. However, it is not totally regular. And I want to talk about that because I'm not worried whatsoever that that's not completely regular yet because we're going to talk about the reasons why this is super common when people are still breastfeeding and why you might be breastfeeding right now and you might not even have your cycle back yet, and that's okay. Everybody is different with this. We're going to really talk about like why your cycle might be irregular when you're breastfeeding, why sometimes it'll take, like most of the time once you start dropping off how often you're breastfeeding, that's when it'll come back, but it might still be irregular, why you might not have it at all. Some people, like one of my friends, she was breastfeeding. She was mainly pumping, but she was still breastfeeding. And she got her period back, I don't know, maybe 2 months postpartum, maybe even less than that. It was crazy. And again, I didn't get it till a year postpartum. So like every single person is different, especially if you are someone who maybe had like cycle issues prior and you had to really work hard at it and your just body is more sensitive to things. You might not have a regular period until you are completely done breastfeeding. But generally, most people won't get their period back in the very beginning when you're breastfeeding literally every hour and a half. Like, wow, so crazy. Once you start like dropping down, that's when some people will get their period back. But again, it took me like a year. Again, sometimes it takes people 4 months, 6 months, whatever. Some maybe 2 years. Like it's totally different. While breastfeeding, we're talking about. We're not just talking about postpartum when you're not breastfeeding. This is specifically for when you are breastfeeding because it is going to impact you actually getting your period back, and especially for you listening to this, if you are, I'm talking about this because I got a question about this in my DMs, and I'm like, okay, let me just do a whole podcast episode on this. But especially if you are currently breastfeeding, but you are trying for your next child, like for your next baby, this could be something that could be really frustrating for you because you're like, shit, it's not regular. Like, you might miss out on certain times of when you can actually get pregnant, or you might be like, should I wait because it's not regular? Like, what should I do? So anyway, that is what we are going to get into today. So in general, like the reason why people who are breastfeeding can experience irregular periods if and when they even do get their cycle back are obviously your hormones are different when you're breastfeeding, like obviously, right? And the major hormone fluctuation is prolactin. So prolactin is the hormone that is responsible for milk production. So when you're breastfeeding, your prolactin levels are really high. the more you breastfeed, the more frequently you breastfeed, the more the output is that you need to have, like, again, compared to when the baby was first born to when they're like, start eating solids and you start dropping things down, like the amount of prolactin you have in your body changes. The more you're breastfeeding, the higher your prolactin levels are, which again, prolactin is what stimulates that milk production, but it also suppresses ovulation because it inhibits the release of, now this is hard to say, but it's called GnRH, but it's gonadotropin releasing hormone, whatever. It's GnRH. Doesn't fucking matter. But what it means is it's suppressing your ovulation. The higher your prolactin levels are, the more you're not going to be able to ovulate because it's suppressing your ovulation. So of course, this is going to lead to problems with you ovulating or even getting your period at all, or it being irregular. And this could also lead to lower levels of FSH, which is your follicle stimulating hormone, which means the hormone that like stimulates your follicle to burst, and your luteinizing hormone, which is, your FSH is the hormone that's helping grow like your follicle, because your follicle will grow and then burst into ovulation. Your luteinizing hormone is what helps it burst. Those could go into low levels as well when your prolactin levels are high, but you need those FSH and LH levels to be balanced out in order to regularly ovulate and have a healthy menstrual cycle. So this is why a lot of the times, because these prolactin levels, these imbalances of FSH and LH, you might not either get your period until you're completely done breastfeeding, or it's going to be irregular when you do get it back. Okay. And then also, like I said at the top, oh, I got to lower my speed here. I'm not even going fast, but like, I talk really fast. I'm like, I'm out of breath. About to strip my shirt off because I'm sweating. Okay, so the frequency and the intensity of your breastfeeding obviously impacts it as well. So the more frequently the baby is nursing, the higher your prolactin levels are, because the more your body needs to produce that milk. So that's also why, like, it's so important for you to breastfeed that baby day and fucking night in the beginning, like literally round the clock, because it's letting your body know, like, oh shit, we got to increase these prolactin levels and we got to get that milk pumping. It really helps your supply. I literally remember my pediatrician was like, like around the clock, like you have to, like every hour and a half. And I thought she was going to say for like, I don't know, like 4 weeks. She's like, oh, for at least like 2.5 months. And I remember I was like a week postpartum and I was dying and I was like, what? I wanted to cry. I'm like, wait, I have to do this for 2 months. Like, oh my God. I thought it was like so impossible. It was fucking hard, but here we are. Anyway, so the more frequently your baby's nursing, the higher the prolactin levels are going to be, which obviously is going to delay the return of your regular ovulation. As your breastfeeding starts to decrease, like right now, I pretty much only do morning and night. So I'm planning on breastfeeding till she's 2 years old, and I want to wean her like around when she's 2. She is for sure not ready yet. I'm like more getting ready. I'm not really like, I'm going to be sobbing when it's over, but I'm starting to get more ready because I want to do things that I can't do while breastfeeding. Like I got a gut test, I don't know, back in September. I put the episode on the podcast. I know I have some candida. I'm doing things I can to heal it, but I can't heal everything that's going on in my gut because I can't take certain herbs until I'm done breastfeeding. So like, I know I want to do that. There's just like certain things I can't do right now, which is totally fine. Like obviously her health is of more importance. And I really want to get to 2 years. So as of right now, again, she's like 20 months. I am only doing morning and nighttime feedings. We were sometimes doing like random ones during the day, but I'm like cutting those now because I'm slowly going to start weaning certain things off. And that's the first one. I was like, okay, we're just not doing during the day feedings anymore. But as your sessions start decreasing, your prolactin levels are going to drop. So I have been noticing like my period is definitely more regular now than it was when I first got it, because my sessions are lower. They're also like less frequent and they're just not as long as they were. So my body doesn't need to produce as much milk. So my prolactin levels don't need to be as high, which is going to allow your ovulation to be more regular. But like I said, it's still not totally regular for me. What has been happening most of the time, especially when I first got it was about every other month. So it's like every other month I would get it. The next month I wouldn't get it at all. Then I would get it. Then I wouldn't get it at all. And then I would have like an anovulatory cycle. So I had a cycle where I was bleeding, and which like looked like a period, but good thing I track everything. I did not actually ovulate, right? So there would be some months where I'd be no bleeding at all. And then there was a month where I did not ovulate, but I did bleed, and it was an anovulatory cycle. Now it's not so much every other month. It's maybe like 6 weeks. So it's getting a little bit more regular, but there's less space in between it, but it's still not totally regular. Like I have to go back and look. I don't know right now. I could pull up my temp drop, but like how long my cycle is right now from the last time I got it. I'm in my luteal phase right now. I'm actually going to get my period day one of us traveling to Florida, which is like totally fine. It doesn't matter to me. Maybe I'll do it at podcast episode on that. But anyway, so that's another reason. Now, a fourth reason, third reason, what number are we on? Whatever. Another reason why your period might be irregular, even if you are breastfeeding, is obviously pregnancy in general and breastfeeding can deplete you of nutrients, right? Iron specifically, because you know your blood literally like doubles, triples, what doubles really when you're pregnant, and you need iron for your breast milk. B vitamins, wow, like so important for breastfeeding and creating that milk. Essential fatty acids, like all of these things, your body prioritizes the baby always. When you're pregnant, when you're breastfeeding, your body is prioritizing the baby. It's prioritizing them when you're pregnant. It's prioritizing your breast milk when you're not pregnant anymore. So all your nutrients like are going there, which is why you need to make sure that you have an abundant amount of nutrients, obviously during pregnancy, but also the entire time you are breastfeeding. Like I have not changed my supplement protocol. Well, that's a lie. I have increased things actually. Since I had Madison, like I'm taking the same amount of prenatal. I'm still taking like my omega. I take the needed prenatal, taking the full dosage. Never stopped it, continuously taking it. And I will take it probably 2 months post breastfeeding. And then I might still stay on a prenatal just because I really like the prenatal, but I'll just probably drop the dose down. Anyway, I'll get to an episode on that when that happens. But so my vitamin D, my magnesium, like all of that. But I actually increased my amount of B12 because you need a lot of B12 when you are actually breastfeeding. So anyway, disclaimer, always check with your doctor for supplementation advice, or obviously the person you're working with, because I don't know you specifically. B12 is like, it stores in your body. You got to check your level, all the things. So if you're nutrient depleted and you are not properly supporting yourself with nutrients, because a lot of times people will stop taking their prenatal once they're not done being pregnant. And I'm like, whoa, even if you're not breastfeeding, you need to be taking that prenatal for at least 4 to 5 months after you're done having the baby. And then I would say, again, a couple months after you're done breastfeeding. But during the entire duration of you breastfeeding, you need to make sure that you are taking proper supplementation. So that could be another reason why your cycles are irregular, because those nutrients that your body needs to produce milk are also needed for your cycle to be regulated. And the like lower energy that you have from not sleeping as good, the higher stress can obviously also contribute to your irregular cycles, whether you're pregnant or not. Whether you're breastfeeding or not, that could add to it. So supplement wise, definitely making sure it's on a prenatal. I use the needed prenatal. Definitely make sure you're taking some form of B12. Just check your levels. And I obviously take my omega from Needed. I take my magnesium from Gut Personal. I have all like my full supplement protocol. It's in the Mind Your Hormones method, but you could also get it separately if you're interested in all of that. I have it for pregnancy, for fertility, for men, for coming off birth control, like so many different protocols. So I'll put that link in the show notes if you're interested in that. So that's that. And then the last thing that can contribute to these irregular cycles is, and this could go for whether you're breastfeeding or not in your postpartum, but like I said, stress and sleep deprivation. I mean, especially if this is like your first child, even if it's your first, second, doesn't matter. You obviously have never had less sleep in your life. Like I've never had this little sleep in my life. I'm getting there with getting more sleep because I'm getting really intentional about going to sleep earlier, because now Madison, she's doing a lot better with sleeping through the night. Just the other night though, she was still up a few times, but like she's more consistently sleeping through the night, but she's up with the chickens. Like she's up between like 5 and 5:30. So like I need to make sure I'm in bed asleep by 10 the latest. Like ideally I'd like sleep before that so I can get full 8 hours, but like a solid 7 hours is like I'm running a fucking marathon these days, because like I have not used to having solid sleep. She's always up in the middle of the night. So maybe that's your case too. Like in the newborn days, you're not sleeping. Like even if you have a toddler like I do, you're probably not sleeping soundly, or like throughout the night, and you may be getting up at different times with teething, and like it's wild. So a lot of times like that stress just of being a mom and working, if you're working, like all the things, and sleep deprivation, like this can lead to a lot of stress in your body, which obviously can delay or totally turn off your ovulation, and it impacts your hypothalamic pituitary axis, your nervous system in general. Like that is a huge reason why people have irregular cycles, and it's a major added stress when you already have a child. So these are all things that could be contributing to you having that irregular cycle when you are breastfeeding. And it might not be regular until you totally stop. Like for me, I do not anticipate my period to be totally regular until I'm totally done breastfeeding. I'm honestly like, I'm so grateful and so like proud of my body that I even have my cycle back while I'm breastfeeding. I'm like, holy shit, like let's go, girl. You're doing so much. So if you have your period back and you're still breastfeeding, that's amazing. If it's a little irregular, like obviously we want to do everything we can to support it to be as regular as possible. Obviously, everything I teach you in the Mind Your Hormones method, like literally that's why I'm still getting my period, even though I have PCOS and I am breastfeeding and doing all the things. And I know it'll regulate out no problem once I'm done breastfeeding. Like I have zero doubt in my mind about it. Which is so crazy because if you asked me like 10 years ago, I would be like, there's no way you have a regular period. You literally lived your whole life without one. Like every time I get it, I'm like, yes, like it's like so amazing. And obviously, if you're listening right now and you're trying to conceive, you most likely have the opposite, like the opposite reaction because you don't want to be getting your period. So I don't mean to say that to be insensitive. I'm not trying right now. Like I'm not trying to conceive. So I am happy when I get my period because it's just like another reminder that like my body's doing its thing. And it's like, yes, we're good to go. So with that being said, if you are trying to conceive and you are breastfeeding and your cycles are irregular, it doesn't mean you can't get pregnant. It could be more difficult. Well, it is going to be more difficult because you're obviously going to have less opportunities to get that fertile window because it's going to be harder to pinpoint. It's going to be fewer and far between. So making sure you're tracking your cervical mucus, which could definitely still also be a little irregular in postpartum, like your patterns of your cervical mucus might be different than they were before you got pregnant. So, but definitely like keeping track of that to see like when you're actually fertile, when you're not. Using temp drop, like I mean, like you have to be tracking that to track your baseline temperature. I love also natural cycles is great too, but it's an under the tongue thermometer. And like, I mean, maybe your baby sleeps through the night and you're waking up at the same time. So like that's amazing. But if you don't wake up at the same time every morning and you have inconsistent sleep, under the tongue thermometer is not going to be accurate for you for baseline temperature because you have to be sleeping soundly throughout the night and you have to wake up at the same time every morning for an under the tongue thermometer to be accurate. That is not my experience. So like I cannot use that to track everything. So I use temp drop for it. So if you're not tracking, highly recommend doing that. You could use my code AF Corinne for a discount. They also always do like they're having sales all the time. If you'll see this in real time, they're doing a sale in March for Women's Month. And like you could stack my code on top of it, which is amazing. Anyway, what was I saying with that? Oh yeah. So if you are trying to conceive, making sure you're tracking is going to be a little bit difficult. And also your progesterone levels are going to be a bit lower because you're not as consistently producing progesterone. And progesterone is a hormone needed to get and stay pregnant, but it's the hormone that your body produces when you actually ovulate. And since you're not regularly ovulating, you're not going to have like as optimal levels of that progesterone because you're just not having as many opportunities to produce it. So of course that could impair your ability to actually get pregnant and to stay pregnant. So that's just something to keep in mind as well. I'm not telling you to stop breastfeeding. I'm not telling you have to stop breastfeeding in order to get pregnant, to have your baby. Like that's not what I'm telling you to do. But it could be in your best interest to maybe wait until you're done breastfeeding and make sure your period is regular for a couple months before trying or, you know, whatever. Of course, there's so many people that have gotten pregnant while breastfeeding and had a healthy pregnancy. Like everybody is different. I'm just giving you like the information about it. And then the other side of this is if you like follow me on Instagram, you know, I go to acupuncture every other week and I've gone to acupuncture for years. And the same acupuncturist I'm working with now, I started with in 2017, maybe. It was part of like my protocol for regulating my period, which is so interesting because I used to do acupuncture years before that and it didn't do shit to help regulate my period. But that's also because I didn't know nutrition stuff that I know now, the lifestyle things. I wasn't making any of those other changes. I was just going to acupuncture and it wasn't working. Anyway, now it's amazing because I do everything else with it. And I used to go twice a week when I was trying to get my period back. Then I dropped down to once a week and then was had Madison and I went back eventually postpartum. We do every other week just because like realistically I cannot get there every week. So I was like, you know, talking to him about all of it. And traditional Chinese medicine has like a different perspective on just our bodies and our hormones and our systems and all of that. And like according to traditional Chinese medicine, the reason why your body is not able to get a period when you're breastfeeding or it's irregular is because there's an interplay of blood. This is how they call it. It's like the way they call like things in your body: blood, chi, and kidney energy, which are essential for your menstrual cycle to be regulated. So like, and I'm only going to go into like 2 of these because these are the ones I talked to him about. I am not, disclaimer, I am not a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. I just really like it and I learn about it. I learned about some of it in my holistic nutrition training, but also just through going acupuncture for so long and talking to him about it. Anyway, so blood deficiency is in like, according to traditional Chinese medicine, blood deficiency, like when you're breastfeeding, you rely on blood to produce milk, right? So the resources that your body are prioritizing are for lactation, right? Are for breastfeeding. Your body is always prioritizing the baby. So your insufficient blood that you have, you just don't have enough of it to actually nourish the uterus and support a regular cycle, because that blood is being prioritized for breastfeeding, for producing milk. It's not being prioritized for you to have a nourished uterus and to ovulate and to have a period. So you just have less quote unquote blood going around to actually produce to support uterus and to have a period. So that's like one thing according to traditional Chinese medicine. And the second thing is that qi deficiency. Qi is just energy, right? So qi is responsible for moving blood throughout your body, including obviously to your reproductive organs. And your inconsistent sleep, you're more stressed, your lack of energy, and all these demands that you have just for breastfeeding, which takes so much energy. I think it's like 500-ish calories more a day that you burn from breastfeeding. And there's something else too. I think it takes like more energy for you to breastfeed than it does, like, than your brain uses all day. I think that's right. Don't quote me on that, but you could check it. Google check me. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, the lack of sleep and the energy like demands that you actually have from breastfeeding can lead to this qi deficiency, which is going to make it harder for you to have a regular cycle. Also, like I said, I go to acupuncture, so that's helping things be more regular for me as well. So that could be something that's helpful for you too, especially if you're really trying to get it more regular and you want to have another baby. Obviously, though, like I just said, acupuncture alone isn't going to do anything. So like, if you are sitting here right now and your period is totally irregular, or you don't have a period yet back at all and you're breastfeeding and you want to try for your next child, whether you want to try right now or you want to try as soon as you're done breastfeeding, like, I cannot recommend the Mind Your Hormones method enough. Is going to help you really support your body from postpartum, like the deficiencies that happen, the stress, like all the things, to really make sure that you are preparing yourself for a strong and healthy pregnancy next time around. A lot of people struggle, like, will get pregnant right away with the first and struggle a little bit more with the second, because your life is totally different. Like, your body is different, your hormones are different, and you have to know how to support yourself through that to make sure that you're able to have the optimal fertility you want to have. And obviously that always goes back to supporting the systems in your body that affect all of your hormones, like your blood sugar, your nervous system, your nutrient density, your gut, your liver, all things I teach you in the Mind Your Hormones method. And the reason why I love, one of the million reasons why I love this method, is because it is for all seasons of life. It's for you if you want to get off birth control, if you want to prepare your body for pregnancy, during postpartum, if you want to try again for your next baby. Like, I have clients that literally started the Mind Your Hormones method 5 years ago. I've like revamped it and stuff since then, and they always get access to the new stuff. Once you're in forever, and you get access to new things, all the things. And they'll message me like, hey, I'm just getting back into it because I kind of like fell off a little bit and I want to have another baby, so I'm going back to everything. Like, it is the gift that keeps on giving. It is so incredible. So I can't even count how many women, hundreds of women I've helped regulate their cycle. If you want to regulate your cycle, boost your fertility for pregnancy, this is the place to be. So go check out the Mind Your Hormones method. I'll put the link in the show notes. You could always use code podcast for 10% off. But in general, again, you could be doing all the things like I'm doing, and it is still a little bit irregular because I'm still breastfeeding. And that just could be your situation until you're done. But there is some regularity to it. Also, I don't have any pain during my period. I'm not having any spotting. Like, when I do ovulate, when I do have my period, like, which I said is probably like every 6-ish weeks now. It's not so much every other month like it was. It's like a beautiful period. Like, I don't, like, nothing changes. I'm not like doubled over. Like, it's like my normal regular period. Like, everything is great. So that's amazing. I have never experienced a horrible postpartum period. Like, everyone says that first period postpartum is horrible. Like, mine was totally fine. So thank you, the Mind Your Hormones method. Another reason it's amazing. So anyway, I hope this was helpful for you. Message me if this was something that was, informative for you, that you loved it. Share this with a friend who might, need this information as well. Thank you as always for being here with me. Thanks for chatting with me on my walking pad. It's always fun when I do that with you. I love you so much. Thank you as always for being here, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for being here. If you loved this episode and learned something valuable, please share it with a friend who you think would also love it, or post it on social media and tag me so I could personally say thank you for helping me spread this important message. I am beyond grateful to be here with you. So until next time, stay intentional, stay consistent, and always mind your hormones.